the big lie, or the big lies, I should say. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. Yours truly, Dave vonKleist, with the WTF reports, holding the legacy media's feet to the fire because they propagandize, they gaslight, they manipulate, they lie. And guess what? Welcome to the WTF Reports on this Wednesday, Hump Day. Don't you dare crump day, because if you do, you're nothing but a chump day. Oh, there's so much to get to, and I'll tell you, the noticing, the awakening is just rippling across the entire country and indeed over the entire world. More and more people are starting to see things that they don't want to see. And you know, nobody likes to be wrong. Everybody likes to be right, but you know, sometimes we have to stop and consider, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we believed something and now we're being presented with information that challenges that belief, and you've got choices. You can either become defensive, you can become angry, or you can approach it with a little bit of humility and say, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about something. Maybe I was deluded, I was misled, I was lied to, and I believed the lie. You know, and was it Mark Twain said, you know, it's always easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. You know, I mean, people don't like to have to face the fact that they bought into a packet of lies, and especially when the truth is very uncomfortable. And I'm sad to say that, you know, I've been going through these processes for years. You know, you come to believe one thing. Okay, for instance, you know, way back when John Lennon was assassinated, and I was right there with all the liberals. We have to melt those guns down. We have to take away all the firearms from all the people. We don't need this violence anymore. And then I saw a bumper sticker. It said, "Those who beat their guns into plows will plow for those who didn't." That was Thomas Jefferson. And that made me stop and think. And then I started to look around and realize how much corruption there was in this world, and how much the government has nothing but disdain for the people. The people have a propensity to challenge power, and those in power don't like that. And then I started looking at the history, and I even wrote a song about it. You know, what's the verse? It says, "In every case in history when genocide was planned, the firearms were gathered up and the opposition banned." And if you look at the history of all the countries that implemented gun control, you find that as soon as they gathered up all the guns, shortly after that, mass genocide. That's just history, folks. Don't get mad at me. I'm just, just do your own research, and you can see that that's exactly what happened. Anyway, the point is that more and more people around the world are starting to notice. It is the great noticing. And as a matter of fact, Bret Weissman. Before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you're listening live, that means you're listening at 2 p.m. Eastern Time or 11 a.m. Pacific Time. I happen to be in the Mountain Time region, so it's just now coming up on 10 after 12. So if you're listening live, that's great. But if you're not, well, then you can't call in. But I'm not going to be taking any calls right away. But the point is that, I would like you to visit the website and share it with your friends. The website is TheWTFReports.com. And when you go there, please visit our sponsors page, because we are brought to you in part by Get More Tank. And you've heard me, if you've been listening to this broadcast on a regular basis, you know that I stand by this product. It's a good thing. It's a win-win situation. And if you're not using it yet, what's the matter, you? You're gonna benefit from this stuff. So anyway, you can get all the specifications and details about Get More Tank by visiting our website. Click on the sponsors page, and then you can click on the little window there. It'll take you to Get More Tank. It'll tell you all about it. And once you become informed, then you too will get more tank. All right, that said. All right, the mainstream media, as you regular listeners know, this is something that I've been railing about for 3 decades. Yes, 30 years I've been screaming about the mainstream networks and how they have lied over and over. That's why I use the music in the beginning and end of this show. It's a song I wrote just about 30 years ago called You Won't Be Trusted Anymore. And having worked in the media I got my broadcaster's license back in 1979. Yeah, I've been at it for a long time, and I understand exactly what propaganda is, and I understand the difference between an answer and a non-answer. But anyway, where do I start? Bret Weissman is a spokesperson, and he's made the rounds, and he made a very interesting comment, and here it is.
Project Mockingbird was the project of the deep state to control us via the media. But it worked much better in an era where there were 3 broadcast networks. You didn't have to control that many properties. The reason that the narrative broke was because Goliath was focused on controlling the mainstream media properties, and it didn't think it had to care about the off Joe Rogan man cave stuff. Why should it care what a podcast was? Who cares what gets said on pirate radio, right? But that mattered a lot because people, when they realized they were being lied to and they were doing harm to themselves because of those lies, tuned out the mainstream media and they started searching for information elsewhere. The punchline is, if you want to beat the deep state, what you need to do is you need to drag Goliath onto territory he doesn't understand. That's where we win.
That's exactly right. And as a matter of fact, that's exactly what's happened. You know, the latest ratings came out for CNN, and you want to know something? Their ratings are lower than the Cartoon Channel. MSNBC's in the hopper too. CBS, ABC, NBC, okay, all of you guys, you know, either you just don't get it or the controls are just so powerful that you can't help yourself. And, you know, the sad thing is, in a lot of cases, you know, they actually believe their own lies. It's just amazing. Well, this is why, you know, alternative media has made such progress in the past decade. And, you know, the powers that be are aware of that as well. In the past 10 years, we've had several different conservative networks pop up. Of course, Newsmax, OAN, One America News, Real America's Voice, News Nation. You know, that's not to say that they're not putting out good information, because they are. But sometimes it's the stuff that they don't tell you, which is important. So, and right now, more and more people are basically noticing, and I'm using that word specifically, the noticing is continuing. More people are starting to notice things that they didn't really want to notice. Again, I go back to when I started this broadcast. Sometimes we come across information that makes us very uncomfortable because it challenges our beliefs, and we can either react to it with anger or defensiveness or humility. And unfortunately, you know, the humility is the toughest part, because you have to admit that maybe you were wrong and you had a false belief. And then you have to tear down that belief and open your mind up to new information. And some of that new information is so unpalatable. It's very difficult to digest. But that's where we are. But anyway, I've got a bunch of different clips I want to get to. Let's see. Where do I go here? Oh, yes, there was I believe this was either on Sky News or on BBC. The discussion was, of course, whether or not the Palestinians are being starved. And yes, the social media, whether it be Instagram or X or TikTok, there's a lot of propaganda being thrown out there. I've seen that over the past 2 weeks. It's just incredible how many people are coming out there and saying, "Oh, there is no starvation and famine in Palestine. Oh, look at this video." And I saw this video over the past weekend. You know, here we are in Palestine, and they're walking down what appears to be a farmer's market, and there's fresh fruits and vegetables and meats, and people are looking so happy and healthy and everything. And I'm looking at this and saying, what are they doing here? This is just, it's absolute, irrefutable, undeniable, blatant propaganda. But anyway, this is a clip from, like I said, it's either Sky News or the BBC, and a woman was talking about exactly that, about this famine. Here's what she had to say.
No, I don't believe a word that Israel says at this point, and they have become international pariahs. And I'm afraid I don't believe a word that any Israeli government official says now, sadly, because as I said, I did support this conflict at the very beginning. I thought Israel had the right to respond. But when you see the footage and when you just read the maths about the number of calories that have been allowed per citizen that have been not allowed since the war started, let alone since April or May, when the trucks have not been allowed in, it is evident that the maths don't stash up. There is a minuscule percentage of the food necessary to feed that population, and the only way they have of eating is what Israel allows in. So, no, I don't believe a word that Israel says at this point, and they have become international pariahs.
Yes, they have become international pariahs. She's absolutely right. And I saw a video of one of these distribution points that the Israelis had set up, and there were hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians all crowded into this one area, and they were being shot at. I mean, how can you justify this? Anyway, let me see here. There's so many things I want to get to. Alison Weir was discussing Zionism. And let me see if I should jump to that one or... Yeah, let's do Alison Weir. Okay, and again, I play the audio receipts. I'm here, WTF, with the facts. So you can't say that Dave said this. I'm just, I go through social media and grab the audio and audio receipts, and also through the networks and get the audio receipts. So you can make up your own mind. Anyway, here's Alison Weir discussing Zionism.
The precursor to today's AIPAC, one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington, D.C., according to Fortune magazine, it's in the top 2, is something called the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC. Well, the direct predecessor to AIPAC was something called the American Zionist Emergency Council, AZEC. This was founded in about 1939, and by 1943, it had a budget of $500,000 at a time when a nickel bought a loaf of bread. By 1939, it had access to a larger fund that was $14 million, and by 1948, $150 million. I believe in today's dollars, I believe that's about $1 billion that they had access to use to propagandize every sector of U.S. society. They not only had lots of money, they used it well. Again, they had written documents about what they were doing. This is written down. They had annual reports about what they were doing. So AZEC specifically targeted congressmen, Christian clergy, editors, professors, both business and labor, Jewish war veterans. They especially targeted the Jewish population with Zionist propaganda. They created hundreds of local committees around the United States. They funded books, made major bestsellers. Other books they didn't like, they called the author anti-Semitic and would bury them. They worked to manufacture Christian support, since the majority of the population was Christian. So they specifically used secret funding to have some Christian groups that would also push the Zionist movement of creating a Jewish state in Palestine. During all of this time, there was surprising opposition to Zionism from diverse sources. Some of the most distinguished American pastors at the time opposed Zionism for moral and religious reasons. Some went to the Paris peace talks to specifically argue on behalf of self-determination for the Arab peoples. One Dead Sea scholar wrote a wonderful book called Palestine is Our Business. Jewish anti-Zionists were also extremely active, opposing Zionism. Elmer Berger, Alfred Lilienthal both wrote very powerful books. The State Department, the Pentagon, the intelligence agencies were also opposed to Zionism. This is thoroughly documented in my book. I have quite a few quotes, starting under President Taft. The Secretary of State opposed Zionism. Under Wilson, he sent a group to look at the situation in Palestine, to explore the feasibility of creating a Jewish state in Palestine. The group came back with an extremely powerful report saying it would be a grave trespass on the rights of the people, that Zionism should be abandoned. But their report was buried and had no impact. There was quote after quote saying that this would be wrong, that it would damage the United States, that it would hurt American strategic interests, that it would place America in danger if we supported Zionism. But Harry Truman, like politicians today, our current one and our past president, both basically say, I'm sorry, but I have to answer to hundreds of thousands who are anxious for the success of Zionism. I do not have hundreds of thousands of Arabs among my constituents. That was Harry Truman. And that's what everybody else has basically said since.
Mm-hmm. And so Zionism now is under the microscope. Now, this is not to be confused with Judaism. All right? I've been very clear about that. The Old Testament Jews and the Talmudic Jews are completely different. This is why many Jewish folks out there are appalled and disgusted with what is going on over there in Israel. And they're screaming, not in our name, not in our name. And this is, and that's a good thing. But the thing is that the Torah Jews versus the Talmudic Jews, totally different. And Ian Carroll did a good job basically explaining this. Here's Ian Carroll on the topic of Zionism.
Dan Bongino just perfectly elucidated why we are so obsessed with Israel right now. And despite his and this whole administration's endless Zionist rhetoric, this is why, if you are pro-Israel, you are not currently America first. And until we deal with this problem, we are not a free nation.
About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share. It says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset. Meaning,
this part,
his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But
you don't know? You don't know which Middle Eastern nations? So there's this entire trafficking ring made exclusively of Jewish billionaires, from the front man to the mastermind to the handler to the bank to the literal ex-prime minister of Israel, also the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. I'm sure that all these Jewish billionaires set up a trafficking ring on behalf of Iran, right? So it's an open secret at Fox News, in these political circles, that Epstein was an intelligence asset of some nation in the Middle East. I don't know if you haven't been paying attention, but the Jews don't get along too well with these Arab nations. What nation could they possibly work for? But the most critical part is that the blackmail was not exclusively in Epstein's possession, because that's not how that works.
I'm going to pause it. You heard that magic word, blackmail. We continue.
He was doing blackmail on behalf of a foreign intelligence service, targeting all of the United States' top people, all of our top scientists, politicians, wealthy people, as well as British, just anyone he could get his hands on. And all of that blackmail is possessed by whatever country he was working for to this day. And they won't give it to us. So even if they blow this story up, expose all the files, even if they show the tapes, which they won't and should not do, we still wouldn't be the only people in possession of them. Every single person on those tapes is controlled by some foreign country in the Middle East. It's like, what foreign country in the Middle East has an insane amount of influence over everyone in the United States for no explicable reason? We are told ad nauseum that claiming that Jewish people have allegiance to Israel over America is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, despite the fact that on TV every day we have explicit evidence coming directly out of their mouths that is often, not always, the case.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that he played that audio clip from Dan Bongino. I played that clip, that was a couple days after he'd made that. We can't figure out which Middle Eastern country has access to all the Epstein files and videos and all that stuff. Come on. A grade school kid could figure that stuff out. But, the hits just keep on coming. As a matter of fact, There's a Chinese gentleman that posted this, and his English is broken, but he's speaking some truth because the Chinese see what's going on. They see exactly who's leading the United States around by the nose. Let me see if I can get this to queue up possibly. Here we go.
Marga keep asking me what the Chinese people think of the Israel and the Ukraine. The majority of Chinese on social media, what I saw, I'm not speaking for them, what I saw is the majority of Chinese know that Ukraine is stupid, used by United States, will be sold out by United States. Israel is pure evil.
Yes, Israel is pure evil, and support of Ukraine is stupid, he said.
And all this war started pushed by United States government. For the last 70 years, the only country pushing all this war around the world is United States government. That is why USA is hated by the whole world. You guys don't know those information because you live in your propaganda cage. And Israel, not even 100 years old, this country. You know that?
Yeah. And so if the United States is hated by the entire world, why do you suppose that is? Who's been pulling the strings all these years? Who do you suppose that could be? You know, even the Democrats now are starting to wake up and realize what's going on with the Israeli influence on our government. Of course, that's through AIPAC. And here's a post from a very left-wing liberal Democrat. And they're starting to come around. They're starting to see it. Listen to this.
I have a message for every seated Democratic leader heading into the midterms in 2026. You will lose your seat if you do not publicly detach from Israel and AIPAC. The people are watching. We see where your money comes from. We see now who you protect and who you refuse to stand up for. Americans are struggling. And instead of fighting for us, you're protecting foreign interests, foreign governments, and worst of all, foreign lobby money. If you've taken AIPAC money, we need to see receipts that you've returned it or donated it towards Palestinian aid. And we need that publicly documented with a journalist, not later, now. You are not entitled to our votes. You work for us. If you don't act like it, we will replace every single one of you with people like us, people that will. This is no longer about parties because we all know that it's not a two-party system anymore. We, the people, are done funding endless wars.
So the Democrats are starting to get it. You know, that's one of the things that the deep state is absolutely terrified of because they're so hard at work trying to create division. Because divided we fall. Yeah, they know that. You know, I mean, this is why they're pitting the blacks against the whites and the upper class versus the lower class. There's class wars and racial wars and holy wars and economic wars and more division. The more we're divided, the weaker we are. The last thing that the deep state wants to see is for people, whether they be Jews or Christians or, whites or blacks or whatever, the last thing that they want to see is all of a sudden them coming together united against a common cause. And what is the common cause? It's becoming abundantly clear and definitely it's difficult to focus on. Because in order to see it, you have to unsee your former belief systems. And now people are starting to look and they see that Star of David representing so many people in the media, in government, in manufacturing, in pharmaceuticals, in communications, in big agri. That Star of David is everywhere. And they only represent, 3% of the U.S. population, and yet what percentage do they, of all of the aforementioned businesses, what percentage do they control? Let that settle in. How did that happen? It happened incrementally, insidiously, diabolically. And there is an issue here. It is a spiritual battle because it is good versus evil. It is light versus darkness. And dare I say it's God versus Satan. I'm sorry if you don't see it that way, but this is why many scientists, and people, Tucker Carlson and Catherine Austin Fitz and Gerald Celente and, all these people from all different aspects and walks of journalism, whether they be economic professionals and experts, or whether they be political experts or what have you, they're all coming to the same conclusion that we are in a spiritual battle. And this is why so many people are saying, hey, we need to, we have to reacquaint ourselves with getting on our knees and praying, talking to God, going in and look at yourself in the mirror and look behind the eyes, look behind the meat suit that you happen to be wearing. This is really important stuff, folks. But there's a guy named Jim Burgess, excuse me, and he basically is spelling out as well. And again, this was posted on X. Give a listen to this guy's assessment.
They used to say this was the land of the free, that we were a sovereign people governed by consent, not coerced by foreign gold. But that's not true anymore, if it ever really was. We're not free, we are but bought men and broken promises. Our Congress is not a hall of deliberation, it is a well-oiled bidding floor, and we the people are not citizens, we are the spectacle. AIPAC writes checks and lawmakers recite its gospel. One by one, these men and women with red ties and blue suits, pearl earrings, and forced smiles march in lockstep to the rhythm of Israeli apartheid. And what's the cost of their allegiance? It's just Palestinian blood and bombed children, a land sieged into silence while Washington lights candles and calls it peace. And of our 535 elected officials in this nation, only one, Thomas Massey, has had the backbone to deny AIPAC's money. 10 others have pledged not to take it directly, but the rest are owned. Maybe not bought outright, but leased out in campaign ads and cowed into silence. The price of the office is fealty to a foreign flag. They may take oaths under our Constitution, but legislate as if Tel Aviv signs their checks. And we can call it what it is. The United States is a colony now. The American empire, once the apex predator, is now just a lapdog. And still we're told not to talk about this, not in polite company, not on the floor of Congress, not in public classrooms or newsrooms or pulpits. Because to criticize the actions of the Israeli state, and not the Jewish people, not Judaism, but the ultranationalist fascism of Zionism itself, is now branded anti-Semitic by design. It's not a mistake, it's the point. Because if they can blur the line between ideology and identity, then every dissent becomes hate and every truth becomes a crime. But Zionism is not a people. Zionism is a political ideology, and a supremacist one at that. And the First Amendment was written for exactly this: to protect speech that challenges power, to protect speech that refuses the script. Hunter S. Thompson once said that you can tell who's in charge by who you're not allowed to criticize. Well, here we are, gagged and shackled in the land of the brave. And this is not democracy. It's hostage governance. In the face of this tyranny wears a smirk Benjamin Netanyahu. This man, this hollow, soulless relic of paranoia and vengeance, is not a leader. He's a child murderer, a tyrant, a war criminal, a wanted man in the eyes of the International Criminal Court, and still we greet him in Washington like Caesar returning from conquest. We clap, we grin, while he wipes ashes from his boots and tells us about Hamas while another hospital is reduced to rubble. Fuck that man. He is not to be feared, he is to be named, he is to be judged, and one day, when his body fails him and the lights go out, I hope he is aware. I hope the screams of every mother echo in his mind. I hope his last breath tastes like ashes and dirt, that he reaches out in fear for a hand that is not there. That he dies alone, afraid, swallowed by the darkness that he fed his empire, because that's the truth he's always run from. He is only a man, and barely that. And no man escapes the ledger to find still death.
No, wow, that's some powerful words, and I apologize for the F-bomb that got out there. It sort of slipped by me when I was making the audio clip. But I mean, that the expletives in some cases are apropos, which is unfortunate, but this is what they're driving the American people and the people of the world to. I mean, the level of frustration, the word frustration doesn't do it for yours truly. I've been screaming from the rooftops and blowing the trumpet for 30 years now. And unfortunately, people they just don't want to listen. They just don't want to listen because they have their bubble, which is fine. I have a couple of good friends that admit that, look, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about religion and everything. I'm happy. I've got my bubble, and that's fine, you know. But just keep in mind, when you stick your head in the sand, your butt is exposed. Anyway, oh, man. Okay, we're coming up on, it's 25 minutes before the top of the hour. Now, just a quick reminder that this broadcast is brought to you in part by the Wave Watch. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, again, you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. We all know that Nikola Tesla said that frequency is everything. And the scientist Royal Raymond Rife took that a step further and started experimenting with sound frequencies and found that they had a direct impact on cells and viruses and bacteria. Some frequencies would destroy bacteria and viruses. Other frequencies would help certain cells to thrive and proliferate. Skin cells, blood cells, you know, I mean, all kinds of good things can happen when you expose these cells to different frequencies. That's what the Wave Watch is all about. It's a Rife machine that you wear on your wrist. Now, there's a lot of Rife machines out there, and I would thoroughly encourage you to do some research into Rife machines and Rife technology. And once you understand the principle and how these frequencies work, then you'll appreciate exactly the brilliance of the Wave Watch, because it's a Rife machine you wear on your wrist. And it's got over 1,000 different frequencies for all different kinds of situations that you might find yourself in, whether you're dealing with back pain or whether you've got a problem with, you know, your blood sugar and stuff like that. I mean, frequencies will affect the body. And the body is like 80% water, which means those sound frequencies, when you wear this on your wrist, you may not hear it audibly, but your body hears it. Goes through your entire body. So do some research on Rife technology, and once you bring yourself up to speed, go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, click on the sponsors page, and then it'll take you down to a window where you can check out the Wave Watch. And if you use the promo code REDPILL100, you'll save $100 if you purchase a Wave Watch, and you'll be glad that you did. So check it out, the Wave Watch, at TheWTFReports.com. Okay, that said, there's more. I'm sticking on this particular subject today because it's so important that we understand. Now, here's Abby Martin. I've played this clip in the past. I'm going to play it again because it is so correct. Again, this is Abby Martin discussing Zionism.
People in Gaza need to know that it's the beginning of the end of the Zionist state. Okay. The Zionist state will not survive. To stay in the same place, they have to kill and kill and kill. That's the only thing they know how to do. And that's not a surviving strategy. And the more people who wake up, and certainly tens of millions of more people have woken up to the truth, to the barbaric nature of what Zionism is and what Israel really represents, there's no going back for them. So for decades, pro-Palestine advocates have been on the defense to explain why defense of Palestine, why advocacy for Palestinian liberation is not anti-Semitic, why criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic. That is no longer the case. Zionists are on the defense now, explaining why they support apartheid and genocide. They're no longer going to be allowed in the same spaces as progressives. It is a racist, colonial, genocidal ideology, and it has been exposed.
Yes, it has been exposed, and it's being exposed even to those who don't want to look at it. We have to stare the monster into the eyes, because that's the only way that you can defeat it. We have to, what was it? Sun Tzu said, you hold your friends close, but you hold your enemies closer. This is why I hope and I pray, this is why President Trump is doing everything he can to cozy up and snuggle up to Israel. Maybe he's holding his enemies so close. I hope that that's the case. And I don't know what's going to happen. But I think that now the whole world is starting to see exactly the stranglehold that Israel has had over the United States for decades and decades and decades. And there's a guy that he was a bit sarcastic. And let me see, where is it here? Let's see. Where is it? Oh, gosh, how did I label it? I forgot. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, there's a guy named James Lee, and he posts on social media, and he made a rather sarcastic video about a minute long. This is a riot. He's supporting a fictitious candidate that's pro-Israel. Listen to this.
All right, I've never ever endorsed anybody for president, for Congress, for Senate, for whatever, but today I am here to announce my full-throated support for Nick for Israel for U.S. Congress. Because I agree with him, America is facing an existential problem, and that only 80% of Congress is funded by AIPAC, which means that 20% of them are anti-Semitic. Okay, you see this chart. The blue, politicians bought by AIPAC, this is good. Red, anti-Semitic. Not good. We need people that are going to fight for common sense policies, patriotic Israel first policies for America in Congress. Okay, policies like granting Israel 3 Senate seats. Yes, absolutely. Provide tax credits to companies that move operations to settlements in the West Bank. Establish Benjamin Netanyahu's birthday as a federal holiday. Yes, God bless that man. This next one's huge for the veterans. Allow IDF veterans to board commercial flights before U.S. veterans. Declare Tel Aviv the capital of California, Oregon, and both Dakotas. And as a California resident, I am 100% on board with this. And finally, one that we've been fighting for a long time, Medicare for all Israelis. Yes, healthcare is a human right for Israelis.
Wow.
If you want to donate, you can go to nickforisraelforcongress.us. But if you're a little short on cash, no worries. Simply like and share this message if you, like Nick, believe that America is all about faith, it's about freedom, and it's about Israel.
A little bit of sarcasm never hurt anybody. Let me see. What else do we have here? Oh, yes, a UN special reporter. His name is Michael Fakhri. And basically, he was, I don't know which network that this was broadcast on. It was posted, and he brings up some very interesting issues about what's going on in Gaza. Listen up.
Well, joining me now is Michael Fakhri, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food. You have been warning about food being used as a weapon since before the blockade this year. How do you think it has happened?
Well, Israel has told us how it's happened. On October 9th, 2023, Israeli leaders announced a full blockade against Gaza and then imposed a full blockade. And we saw their starvation campaign really speed up, so that by March of 2024, the International Court of Justice, when it issued its provisional measures, recognized the spread of famine and starvation. And then soon after, in November 2024, the International Criminal Court issued 2 arrest warrants, one for Prime Minister Netanyahu and one for former Minister of Defense Gallant for the war crime of starvation. So we've seen this unfolding for the last 22 months at least. And then yet again, Netanyahu on March 1st of this year announced the starvation campaign again. So that from March 2nd, to May 19th, for approximately 78 days, nothing entered Gaza. No food, no water, no medicine, nothing. It was a near 80-day full starvation campaign most recently. And this is where we're at today.
If Israel goes to a 100% occupation of Gaza, what will that mean?
Israel's been occupying Gaza since 1967. This is what the International Court of Justice has found, and that occupation has been illegal. It uses different methods in terms of how it's been occupying. Where we saw from 2005 or 6 is Israel withdrew its troops from Gaza, surrounded and imposed a full siege around Gaza since 2007. Now what we see is Israel announced its full annexation plan. This is where we're at. Not just of Gaza, but of West Bank and East Jerusalem. Several times over the last 2 years, Israel keeps announcing its intent to fully occupy and ultimately annex all remaining Palestinian territories, meaning Gaza, West Bank, and East Jerusalem.
Now, Israel believes most of the UN is biased against it, including you and the Human Rights Council that appoints you and colleagues, other special rapporteurs. It's going to the Security Council tomorrow. How should the UN as an institution handle a country that constantly accuses it of institutional bias?
Israel has benefited from the UN since its creation and has continued to benefit from the UN system. And then it criticizes the different parts of the UN system when it doesn't meet Israel's political and military needs. Where we're at now is Israel is not just criticizing the United Nations, it's attacking the United Nations. It is deemed the Secretary General persona non grata. It's thumbed its nose at the Security Council and International Court of Justice in the past. It's attacked independent human rights experts like my colleagues and the Human Rights Council. Moreover, it's actually attacked UN staff. It's killed a record number of UN staff in the last 22 months, more so than any war since the creation of the UN. And it's shot at UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. And I've heard ambassadors say that when Israel attacks the UN, it's attacking the world.
Michael Thackeray, thank you very much.
Interesting. Okay, now there are a couple key words there. Humanitarian is one of them. Okay? Human rights. Now that's an issue right now that you need to grasp because the beliefs of these individuals in Israel are that if you're not one of them, then you're not human. That's exactly what they believe. You are goyim. Goyim meaning subhuman. They see you as dogs. They really do. And that's why these international commissions on human rights means nothing to them, because they don't believe that anybody else has human rights because they're not human. That's what they're taught from early childhood. They actually believe this. And that's what makes this so insidious, so evil, because they actually believe these lies. Oh, man. Okay, let me see. Now I'm going to get real heavy here. And if you've got a paper and pencil, you might want to write this down. Now, there was an interview that was done by a guy named Harold Wallace Rosenthal. You might want to write that down. Harold Wallace Rosenthal. Now, this interview was taken in 1976. Let me see. I'm going to double check that. Yes, it is 1976 that this interview was taken. It is published on the following website. You want to write this down. Rense.com, RENSE.com, all right, /general66/Rosen.htm. Again, altogether, it's rense.com/general66/Rosen.htm. All right, now this is it's a long read. It was a long interview, and I don't have the time to read the whole thing. It probably would take a good 20 minutes, maybe even a half an hour to get through this. But I mean, some of the things that were disclosed in this interview will absolutely freak you out, because you'll get a better understanding of where these people are coming from. And again, it doesn't make any difference what I believe. It doesn't make any difference what you believe. What makes a difference is what they believe. And this is absolutely horrifying when you find out exactly what's coming out of this gentleman's mouth. I'm going to share just a little bit of the interview here. Let me see if I can find that. I'm scrolling through this. Let's see, where do I start? Let me see. Okay, well, I'll just start here. It says, when the U.S. foreign policy was mentioned, the bedroom confidence of the interview was all but set aside. Okay, no, that's not what I wanted to read. Let me see here. Oh, gosh. There's so much. There's so much here. What you are about to read should act as a warning to all non-Jews throughout the world. It hopefully should open the eyes of many who knew him in Washington government circles. It becomes indeed obvious that what he discloses is not fiction. It is not imagination. He was not pretending he was not pretending as he spoke with knowledge and intelligence. Many things have been said and written about the one world Jewish conspiracy, but never has it been described so openly. It staggers the imagination. Their plans are shocking, and many will be astonished at the contents of this document. Nothing, and that's in all capitals, nothing like this has been told before. We prefer not to elaborate. You be the judge. Looking back at the time of this interview and having had the time to analyze Harold Rosenthal's candidness, we are compelled to think of him as a conceited, boastful, yet very knowledgeable person. I would classify him as an egotist and an egoist. At times, his cruelty surfaced with a venom, especially as he describes the stupid Christians, or goys, as he so often refers to as us. Okay, so that just sort of sets the stage as to what this interview is all about. You really should sit down and read this, and hopefully you'll be able to keep your mouth closed, because your jaw will absolutely drop open when you hear some of this. But I wanted to share that with you. Again, this website is rense.com/general66/rosen, ROSEN.htm. I highly recommend that you sit down, spend the 20 minutes or so that it'll take to read this, and get an idea of where these people are coming from. And I will tell you that they are Satanists. They are. They admit it. They admit it. And we can see it in our media. It's everywhere. They control the media. They control the music industry. Look at the videos that are out there. Look at the concerts that are being put on by the pop stars. Look at the optics, the visualization of satanic rituals. It was even on Saturday Night Live. They were laughing about it. And this is their belief system. The Satanists actually believe that they have to give hints and tell you what they're going to do before they do it. And that's their belief system. Now, I've got a couple of other things I wanted to share with you. There was an interview that was done by James Wickstrom, who basically he was a white supremacist. That's what everybody was saying. He's a white supremacist, he's a Nazi, he's a Jew hater, and he's this and that, okay? He had an interview with a rabbi by the name of Finklestein, A.B. Finklestein. I'm just going to share a piece of this for you. And the first part of it was talking about, the rituals about killing children and drinking their blood and all that type of stuff. I'm not going to play that, but I will play this part here. So if I can get this to cue up properly, here it is.
Us Jews, we got to do what we do. The most important thing to remember between you, Pastor Wickstrom, and me, Rabbi A.B. Finklestein of New York, that we both have two fathers, and so that's why we look at the world in two different ways.
And we know that there's a massive collision that's going to take place between two forces, don't we?
Well, that's what your book says. Our book says that we're going to take over the world.
Well, I look at you...
You're doing a pretty good job right now.
Yes, you've done a pretty good job, but there's quite an awakening coming. And my father, who's not your father, my father Yahweh, who isn't your father... Of course, your father is talked about by my father in John 8:44, stating that your father was Satan and that you're the descendant of Cain, who was the first murderer. And you know that's true because you teach it in your synagogue.
Oh, that's true, but it's not for you Goyim to know. But right now it's too late. It's over for you white race. So that's why I'm speaking so honestly here, to bring it out into the open so that you can see it for what it is. You've been teaching the people real good, but they don't wake up, do they? You don't get a lot of followers, do they? Because you know why? They're scared of us Jews, because they don't want to be called anti-Semites, and they believe that we're the chosen people, and so that's why we can do whatever we want to do, and we can get away with it, because the white men are cowards, and we go to the synagogue all the time and have some Manischewitz and dance the Hava Nagila.
It's interesting. I've told people for years and years, it's not that you Jews are hiding anything. You're coming right out on television, in the newspapers, on the radio, and you're telling the people exactly what you're going to do before you do it, and they're brain dead.
Well, we did a good job with the public school system. We got you to put all of your children in there. You notice that the Jew doesn't put his children in there. They go to the Hebrew Academy, where we teach them the real things, and then they go to the synagogue and they learn the real important things. But we send your kids to the public school. We even have you tax yourself from your property so that you never own your property. And so if you don't make your property tax, we're going to take your property. You can bet on that. And we have you put your kid in a 12-year babysitting is about all it does, because you don't learn anything. And then by that time, the kids, they get to be teenagers, and then we give them the music. Not that we really want to call it music, because, oy vey, that's not music. But they listen to that, and then they want to do what they want to do, and so we sell them drugs, and we make a lot of money off your children. Your children from cradle to grave. All we do is make money off of them. Your cattle, your goyim, the human cattle. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, yeah. And again, I want to emphasize, it doesn't make any difference what I believe or what you believe, but it's what they believe. And you're hearing it directly from the horse's mouth. I'm not making this stuff up. Again, this was an interview. And if you go to X and do a search and see if you can find it, Rabbi Finklestein, James Wickham. I don't know. I hate to be beating the drum on this, folks, but we have to face it. We have to face it. This country has been taken over. It absolutely has been. And let me see if I have time for one more clip here. Let me see. Okay. Well, this relates to Trump. As a matter of fact, Colonel McGregor was being interviewed by Clayton Morris on Redacted. And here's a quick excerpt from this interview that was just done. I think it was either yesterday or the day before. And McGregor is voicing his concerns about what's going on with Donald Trump. And, well, he should. Here it is.
We have a comment here that says, didn't you used to be pro-Trump? We're not here to be pro any one person or administration. We're here to talk about the reality that we live in. So you very much could like President Trump and still not like how this is playing out in the battlefield. So people are confused by this lack of tribalism.
Well, and Natalie, when I spoke to Trump privately, and this is back in November, and then in April and November of 2020, I was a very different man. This was a man who felt strongly that we should withdraw our forces from Europe. The Europeans should ultimately be their own first responders. I think he's 100% right. I thought so then. I still think so now. He absolutely rejected the notion that Russia or China posed an existential threat to us. When I argued that the real existential threat to the United States emanates from the Caribbean basin and Mexico and the drug cartels as a result of the human trafficking and drug trafficking, he agreed. That's 2020. And if you go back to when he ran for office this time around in 2024, most of what he said tracked with what he's always believed in the past. But he's gotten in there and he's done a 180-degree turn. He is clearly the hostage or captive or prisoner of the big lobbies, whether it's the Israel lobby or the war lobby, or the pharmaceuticals or anything else.
All the lobbies.
And I think that's where we are. And so under the circumstances, what am I supposed to do? Continue to say I love Donald Trump? Well, I like him personally, but I think he's leading us down the path to destruction now.
Yeah. And now that was very key what he said. Is he's being influenced by all of the lobbies, the Israel lobby, the pharmaceutical lobby, the military-industrial complex lobby. And again, you take a look at all the people who are in control of those organizations and start to think about what ethnic group that they associate with. It's not hard to figure out, folks. I don't want to admit this. I don't want to have to face this. But it's unfortunately, the truth is never easy to find, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. And yes, it is a bitter pill to swallow. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, I hope I've given you food for thought for on this broadcast, and I realize that this is ruffling some feathers and maybe pissing a few people off, but too bad. I'm sorry. Not sorry. I was charged with the responsibility of blowing the trumpet many years ago. Ezekiel chapter 33 told me to do so. And yeah, I took a little bit of a hiatus because my head exploded when I got overloaded with truth and reality. But I'm back again, folks, and this time I'm blowing the trumpet even harder. And, go to the end of the chapter and maybe you'll figure out, what my mission is and why I'm doing it and why I don't have much of a choice. You either stand in the light or you hide in the darkness. It's as simple as that. All right, that said, that's going to bring us to a close of another edition, another episode, another installment of the WTF Reports. If you enjoy the broadcast, please like, share, subscribe, and spread the word. And visit the website, the WTF Reports, and do some business with us. Help us keep the lights on. All right, that said, we're out of here. I'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, God bless you all. Stay safe and stay free.